Hello, everyone. Um, Something very unfortunate happened on the 7th. I was all prepared. And I made a terrific video. It was a great video. I had a response all prepared to the events in DC, and I had made the whole video. I had made the whole thing. It was all done. I waited hours while it processed. I look at the video, and there is no sound at all. No sound at all. So I filmed a couple more test videos. Still no sound. Still no sound at all. So then I had to go into my computer settings and look at the microphone. And somehow, some way, the microphone had been flipped. It had been switched to the wrong microphone. There wasn't a microphone that was even there. Wasn't even there. There was no microphone there. And it had been switched to that setting. And from the regular microphone. And I found this extremely fishy. I was very, very suspicious. So take it for what you will. You be the judge. What happened? How my whole video got erased the other day, and the sound just wasn't there. You can see the lips moving, but without sound, Google will censor a video. They'll just blur out your face. They'll just blur out the whole video if there's no sound. So I really can't show it to you, even if you're a lip reader. So that's sad. That's too bad that somebody may have tampered with my computer. Somebody may have remotely tampered with my computer so that I couldn't make a timely response to what was happening. And that's too bad, because I was on the side of the establishment for once, and their fears were unfounded. So they tampered with my computer. They tampered for no reason. There was no reason for it. There was absolutely no reason for it. It was completely unjustified. And now no one will ever get to see that video. It's not going to change my point of view or my message. I'm still on point. I still have the same message, but someone unfortunately thought that would be a really good idea to censor my video, so switched the microphone to the wrong microphone so that there was no sound at all. There was no sound at all for the video. So what was my message? What was this message that I worked so hard to record and wanted to send to you in a timely manner and was prevented from doing so? I wanted to send the message that obviously what Trump did was wrong. It was obviously a coup. It was obvious that it was a government coup. And it was very primitively done. It shows that Trump really isn't as intelligent of a person as he pretends to be. He pretends to be so intelligent, but he's really not all that bright. He's not a very smart criminal. He's kind of a dumb criminal. And he is a criminal. What he did was totally, totally criminal. And naturally, he deserves what he gets. I don't know why anyone would want to censor my video. I was just agreeing with the media. No one censored the media. No one turned their cameras off, although the protesters were beating the cameras. Maybe it was Trump. Maybe Trump has some agents in the government too, and they censored my video. Possibly. I don't know. They didn't know what I was going to do before they switched off my microphone, so could have been one of Biden's guys. Was a smart ass. Yeah, I swore. Smart aleck thought he could predict what I was going to say, and that would be inflammatory, and wanted to censor me. So if that's the case, Biden, you've got a bad crew. You've got a bad crew, and they're not your friends. They're not your friends, and they're not on your side. They're just a liability. Whoever did that was a total liability to Biden. But I knew this was going to happen. Now you're probably asking, how did I know? How did I know this was going to happen? How could I have predicted this? Well, it was logical deduction. I would like to make a statement now. I had absolutely no inside knowledge whatsoever of what was about to occur. I swear to you, I had no inside knowledge of what was about to occur. But I knew what was going to happen anyway. Even before he said, let's march to the Capitol, I knew what was going to happen. I knew it. I knew it. I knew they would storm the Capitol building. How did I know? Because that's the logical deduction. That's how you overthrow a government. First, you get rid of Parliament. And like I said in my other video, Trump is a lot like Guy Fawkes. Maybe instead of Guy Fawkes masks, people will start wearing Trump masks instead of Guy Fawkes. Or maybe they'll wear Guy Fawkes-like Trump mask. Cross between the two, between Guy Fawkes and Trump, if Guy Fawkes and Trump had a baby. Because Guy Fawkes had a plot to blow up the Parliament. He had the plot to blow up the Parliament, and was those Catholic priests wanted to convert England, the whole of England, to Catholicism by force. And their idea was if they blew up the Parliament, they could take over the government and move in and conquer England and turn it into a Catholic state, good Catholic vassal, and get rid of all those Protestants, get rid of the Church of England, which now is known as, I think, as Episcopalian. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% certain on that. But yeah, it was those extremist. The Pope is one of these. It's an extremist Catholic group of Catholic priests that are extreme and elite. They're the elite of the Catholic Church, and they had a plot to blow up Parliament, and they used Guy Fawkes to ferry in all the explosives and dynamite underneath the Parliament building. The explosives were discovered in time. Guy Fawkes was arrested and hanged. And then they wore his face. They wore Guy Fawkes masks every year. And they burned the Pope in effigy to remember. Sure to remember the 5th of September. Gunpowder, or maybe it's the 5th of November. I think it's the 5th of November. Gunpowder treason plot. I see no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. And then they made a movie with the Guy Fawkes masks. I'm sure you remember that movie, where they were going to blow up a train and the woman was being brainwashed and tortured. And it was sick. It was a sick movie. Really sick. But there was that movie. And there was also Anonymous. He wore a Guy Fawkes mask. So Guy Fawkes has been pretty popular. Trump is just like Guy Fawkes. Because he wanted his supporters, his Trump supporters, to go in there and rip the senators from limb to limb. They didn't succeed because they had security protocols in place, and there was no way they were going to overcome those security protocols. They came close. This is all pre-planned. It's all staged. The senators were never in any real danger, but it sure looks like it. Sure looks like it from our point of view. And all those guys that came in and they sat in the seat and they slid down the banister and they did all this crazy stuff, but they were going to get the senators out in time. It was all staged to scare and frighten, so they could have some show trials of some disloyal Americans. Just like the old show trials in the days of Stalin. We're back to the days of Stalin. It's the beginning. It's the show trials. And anybody who was dumb enough to show up, had no brains whatsoever, and showed up and stormed the Capitol building, they're all going to prison. They're all going to prison. Told you to stay out of it, didn't I? And I didn't know this was going to happen. I had no proof. But I just knew. I just knew it was going to happen because, I used logical deduction. And that was the only logical conclusion that could be reached based upon Trump's prior words and prior behavior and his modus operandi. I could even possibly work for the FBI, but they'd never have me because I'm too radical. They wouldn't want somebody as radical as me, but I could do that kind of work. I could be a detective and figure out what people are about to do. In politics, I could be a move predictor. Just like a game of chess, you're moving the chess pieces and you figure out what order the chess pieces go in and you predict the move. I think that's called profiling. Could be a good profiler. But anyway, I had a pretty good hunch what was about to occur. I knew what was going to occur, and I was right. So anybody with half a brain would have known that if you led those guys right up to the steps of the Capitol and told them to go up on the steps of the Capitol, that they were going to bust down the doors and go into the building. That they would bust down the doors and go into the building. All of his words were fighting words. Eric, Don Jr., Donald Trump, and Rudy Giuliani. All seditious language. They were saying, Eric said, stand up and fight. Or maybe that was Don Jr. I'm not sure if it was Don Jr. or Eric. Said, stand up and fight. I think Eric was the one. Don Jr. said, stand up and fight. Eric said, you can be either a hero or a zero. And if you're a zero, we're coming for you. We'll be in your backyard in a month's time. 2 months' time, they said. It was really weird. And then Trump was saying, you do not win your country back by weakness. You must show strength. You don't win your country back by weakness. You must show strength. He said, now we fight, or we will fight. And that must take a stand. So he led the crowd. He whipped the crowd up and he said, we're going right to the steps of the Capitol. We're going to boo senators that are against us and cheer on the senators that are for us. That's what he said. Right? And he said it'll be a peaceful protest, right? But they had to hurt some guards and knock down a gate to get there. And now they've reported that one of the DC police was killed in the line of action, and also a woman was killed. Babbitt, this woman Babbitt, who was a Air Force veteran and was very pro-Trump, was killed. She was shot to death. And of course, there was the usual people having heart attacks in the excitement and heat of the moment. So what can we conclude from this? What can we conclude from these events? Well, the only conclusion we can reach is that Trump is guilty of high treason and that he tried to stage a takeover of our government for his own personal benefit, for his own personal gain. It was all about Trump. It was all about him. And who was at this protest? Well, I heard on the news that there were some Antifa guys there that just pose as right-wing radicals just to cause trouble and to rile people up and overthrow the government any way they can. Antifa actually is anti-government, and they want to overthrow the government. They're like anarchists. And also, there were far right-wingers, Trump supporters, or people waving gun flags. There's a guy dressed as a Viking, or no, it was a gladiator. He was dressed as a gladiator, and he was waving some sort of Trump flag, and he was dressed as a gladiator. He looked like an idiot. There were lots of patriot flags from the early Revolutionary War in the early years of our country, flags that were homemade by the revolutionaries. People were waving the reproductions of those flags, replica flags. And they had Trump flags, and they had signs. And somebody jumped 20 feet down into Pence's seat. Jumped from a banister, jumped from a balcony, over 20 feet. It was an over 20-foot drop down into Pence's seat, and was sitting in Pence's seat screaming that Trump had won the election. There's another guy put his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk, and they showed this over and over and over everywhere. Everywhere they showed this guy with his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. And and that guy carried off the speaker's podium. It was just total mass chaos. But you can bet it was all staged by the elites. The elites had this all planned, all plotted, months in advance. And they were using Trump as their pawn. And they were using Trump to stage this false coup. It was a false flag terror operation. Obviously, the terror was real, but because the people were real. But they had been influenced. If you listen to Trump's speech, if you actually believed every word he was saying, you would believe that your government was being taken over by force also, by sedition and falsifying results and nullifying the vote. You would really believe that if you had believed every word Trump said. However, Trump was lying. We don't know for a fact Trump was lying, but it's very highly likely that he was lying, because they've already debunked a lot of the stuff that he said, and said that none of that was true. So it's a he said situation, one person's word against the other, and it's just a matter of who you believe, Trump or Secretary of State of Georgia, who really has no reason to lie other than possibly being threatened if his life was threatened, but I kind of doubt it. He seemed very calm, very collected, very cool. Maybe not a true Republican, but he seems to think that all of Trump's claims are lies, and the media seems to think so too. Everyone seems to think that Trump is lying, even Mitch McConnell. So, a lot of people that were loyal to Trump before are jumping ship, and they're discussing impeachment proceedings now. Was going to discuss impeachment proceedings before, about an hour into the riots. They were beginning to call the people that were rioting. They didn't call them this at first because they were so shocked, I guess, or maybe they were scared of what would happen. But they were calling, about an hour or so in, about 1 or 2 hours in, they began calling them anarchists and rioters. Then about 4 or 5 hours later, they began actually addressing what Trump had said and criticizing him for that and laying the blame on him about 4 or 5 hours in. And then about 7 or 8 hours in, they were calling for impeachment and for his removal. And a whole bunch of senators and representatives made statements to that effect, including Ilhan Omar. We don't like Ilhan Omar, but this is her moment to shine, right? Her moment in the spotlight, because she's drawing up articles of impeachment right now. And Biden was disgusted. This is the new news, is that Biden is disgusted. He's denounced Trump and called for his removal from office and for him to be prosecuted. So Trump has made an awful lot of enemies, and a bunch of White House aides have resigned. The circle is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it's just down to one man, which is Trump. His circle is closing in on him. And the man could even possibly be suicidal at some point. He might be suicidal. They might have to have a suicide watch. Watch him carefully to make sure that he doesn't commit suicide. As far as what I said the other day, I know you're probably angry about what I said about the East Texas church shooting. I know you're probably angry. And Martin Luther King Jr. Day is just right around the corner. It's coming very soon, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And you're probably thinking that what I said was wrong. That I shouldn't have said that people's reputations are ruined by sociopaths, because everyone's an individual, right? But that's not how it plays out in real life. Okay. Life is ugly. Life is ugly. Reality is ugly. It's down and dirty. Down, dirty, ugly, evil reality. Okay? It's not just. It's not just. It's not fair. It's not right. Okay? And that it wasn't my point. I wasn't saying it was just or fair or right at all. You can't get that from what I said at all. What I'm saying is you have to face reality, no matter how bad it may be. And that's the reality. That's the reality. That other people's reputations can be damaged and tarnished by a lone individual. A whole group of people can be smeared by a certain group of individuals that may be a part of that group but aren't representative of that group. But, like, could say, well, how can you say they're not representative of that group? That's the no true Scotsman argument. But I don't like no true Scotsman at all. I don't like it at all. There's something to be said for saying, yeah, the majority keep their noses clean and are decent and honest people, and they have nothing to do with sociopaths at all. There's cogent argument there. So no true Scotsman argument falls to pieces, in my opinion. They shouldn't be representative. Like the people that broke into the Capitol shouldn't be representative of America. No true American would do that. Okay, so it's the same thing. It's the same thing saying that a logical fallacy is misleading. It's misleading, and it's an attempt to obfuscate. Just to be annoying. Not because you believe it or you really care about it, but just to be annoying. So, it's true. Sociopaths are not, I repeat, not representative of the African American community. They are not. But they sow the seeds of hate, as I said. They tarnish other people's reputations, whether that's right or not, whether that's fair or not, because it's not fair. It's not fair and it's not right, but that's the reality. And then brutal things happen, like the George Floyd killing. Brutal things happen, like mentally ill guy running toward the police and getting shot, and who was unarmed. Or maybe he was armed, but he was out of his mind. He just needed to be disarmed. Things like that. Or guy that was reaching into his car for his gun and he gets shot in the back 7 times, which is excessive force. But the guy that did it, the cop, didn't get prosecuted because it was the heat of the moment. He was overexcited and he was scared, and he just shot the guy 7 times in the back, and was afraid that the guy was going to whip around with a pistol and shoot him right in the face. So, and then there was Rayshard Brooks was going to tase the police. He turned around to tase the police, and that's when they shot him. And if he had tased the police, supposedly he would have gotten their weapon away. But he wasn't necessarily going to get their weapon away. Maybe he just wanted to tase them to slow them down and then make a getaway. He didn't necessarily want to kill anybody, because he was running away, right? Was just an assumption that he was going to shoot them, but with their own guns. But that's the kind of judgment call police officers make every single day, is deciding whether a suspect, if there's even anything in the realm of possibility that they could get shot. And also, I wanted to make a correction. Correction was that it was actually a pastor that got shot at the East Texas church. It wasn't a police officer at all. It was the pastor. His wife fell down and got injured, and another person got shot and was injured, but the pastor died. He was shot dead with his own gun, and the suspect disarmed him. That was Pastor McWilliams. So I leave you with this. I know that there's been a lot of talk about, like, white people did this. It was white people, and they claim that the DC cops, I didn't see any footage like this. This was just a claim, and I didn't see any footage to substantiate it. The DC cops were leading people around, showing them around the Capitol building, escorting them in, opening the doors for them. And that would have never happened if they had been black. And there was also another thing, these cowardly white intruders chasing this man with a disabled arm. His arm was paralyzed and he couldn't use it, one of his arms, and he was holding a baton in the other arm, threatening them. Kept running up the stairs, trying to slow them down by threatening them with the baton, and he had to keep moving because they were chasing him up the stairs. How much courage does it take to take on a man who only has the use of one arm? That is pretty darn pathetic. And he was the National Guard, and he was black. And the National Guardsmen had no shields and no weapons whatsoever. Even when they sent the National Guard to Minnesota, they had shields. These National Guardsmen had no weapons and no shields whatsoever. What were they supposed to do with no shields? How were they supposed to stop people without shields? or weapons. They had nothing. It was absolutely ridiculous. And you know it was all staged and it was all deliberate. Trump made sure they were unarmed and had no shields. Trump made sure that Pence would do his dirty work for him. Trump used Pence to do his dirty work. And then he put Pence's life in danger. Well, supposedly his life was in danger. It was all staged, but there was a risk there. There was a possibility that Pence could have been killed, possibly, because they had a scaffold ready for him outside, ready for Pence. Well, they had it all planned out ahead of time. Notice that they had it planned out ahead of time that they were going to hang Pence if he didn't do Trump's bidding. So they were predicting that Pence wouldn't do Trump's bidding, but they really knew. They knew all along. And it was all planned and it was all staged. So all these people are going to be arrested. Trump may be criminally prosecuted. And it was all to satisfy the elites. And I'm not talking about Congress when I say elites. Understand me. I'm talking about financial elites in this country that are plotting against our country. They're plotting some sort of takeover. I don't know what kind of a takeover they're plotting. They're always plotting against us. They're always plotting these ridiculous things to distract, amuse, horrify, shock, keep us in a panic all the time. Just have to stay calm and use your head, and use your mind, and ignore the media. Ignore the media circus, because they're the ones, they're promoting all of this. They're promoting all of the party lines we're supposed to believe. Yeah, the senators are right to be outraged and incredulous, but if they had been observing Trump in any capacity, in any way, shape, or form, they could have predicted this would happen too. They would have known, and they probably did know, and they're just feigning outrage, because it was all planned. It was all planned and all staged, probably to have a chilling effect. Now this will have a chilling effect on any criticism of Biden. People will be afraid to criticize Biden for fear that they'll be implicated maybe in this plot. But we had nothing to do with it. Those of us who are critical of Biden had nothing to do with it. And this isn't going to have a chilling effect on us. We're going to stay strong. We're going to keep criticizing Biden and observing Biden and seeing what he does. We're not going to back down or be silent. And they have control of the legislature now. Apparently people thought this was a good idea. Thought it was a good idea. And the Democrats had way more money than the Republicans. They just had a ton of money. I just don't even know where all this money came from. They had a ton of money, probably from Amazon sales. It's probably Amazon. So Amazon is very liberal. They had a ton of money and they won. They won. And now they have complete control of the legislature, of Congress. And they can pass any legislation they like. This might actually be a good thing, because then people will see how crappy socialism really is and want to reverse or undo everything that's been done and just vote against it next time. If we can. If we can get a majority. Because there seem to be some fools in this country. People who are utter fools, who just follow a party line and believe what they're told by the media and believe what they're told by everyone else. And think that makes them wise. They think they're learning things. They think they're expanding their minds. They think they're advancing. They're just being told what to believe. They're not thinking. And they're not going to think, and they're not going to learn. the ins and outs or look at the other side. They'll never look at the other side. They'll never look at the other side, and they'll never know. They'll never know what people were actually upset about, what people objected to, what people really thought. They won't have the opportunity that Ocasio-Cortez did to learn economics and then make an informed decision as to whether they want to be a communist or not. They don't get that choice because they only ever see one side. They don't take economics. They don't learn history. They don't learn history of communism or socialism and what it's done in this world. That 100 million people have died so far of communism and counting. And counting. Because it could come to our country too. And China would like nothing better than to take over. You need to inform yourselves. You know, there was this liberal commentator. He was just a reporter. He was just a reporter, liberal reporter working for a liberal company. It may have been NBC or CBS, one of those. And he said, I am just so sick. I am so sick of hearing about China. They had just mentioned China the day before. They hadn't mentioned China for months. Months and months and months. There was a complete media whiteout, and none of our leaders were mentioning China. No one was mentioning China. So this guy got sick of hearing about China almost as soon as it hit the news. Well, how could he get sick of it that quick? How could he get sick of it that quick? Because he loves China so much. He loves China so much, and he loves communism so much. He loves human rights abuses so much. He's sick of it almost as soon as he's heard of it. And you know that was staged also. They were just trying to tell people their base what to think and how to feel. And that's what people do. They hear what to think and how to feel. They hear an attitude. They're like, yeah, I agree with that. So that's it. Martin Luther King Jr. Day coming. Big day for African Americans. Hope that people will consider volunteering that day, sprucing up neighborhoods, and maybe undo some urban blight. Maybe work on the urban blight for a change for a little while, and do something about that. Improve people's lives, improve their living conditions and their livelihoods, and undo some of the damage that these terrible rioters have done to the African American neighborhoods and communities. I'll see you next time.